So we've now seen the parts of this film that take place on the ship, and I, for one, have found it to be largely worthless. But when we look at what's going on the planet, it's actually pretty good. The Enterprise has traveled back to the day before first contact, which is the day that we, as human beings, achieve warp drive, and we got the attention of the Vulcans passing in a ship. The new warp-capable vessel named the Phoenix is going to lift off tomorrow, but unfortunately the Borg came in shooting before the Enterprise destroyed them, sort of, and this left a lot of important players dead. This is the first time Star Trek has really been given a direct and specific origin story. Before this, everything we knew about how humanity took its place in the universe was mostly inferred, and the story of the Phoenix and Zefram Cochrane himself absolutely lives up to what the series is, and it gives it an origin that is satisfying and appropriate for Star Trek. There are several things I love about this story. The first is the very name Phoenix. The Earth has just seen its third world war. Almost all the major cities are wiped out, almost no governments remain, and 600 million are dead. And what was once a nuclear missile has now been converted into a warp-capable ship that will usher in a new era for humanity. There is no greater metaphor for this whole situation than a phoenix rising from the ashes. The second thing I love is how the Enterprise crew is forced to get involved in this historical event by taking the place of people who were killed in the attack. This is one of the most important moments in human history, and now, through necessity, the crew of the Enterprise gets to be a part of that great thing. Even though it's a very small part, this is still a great honor for them. All of the Starfleet personnel on the planet seem overjoyed by this opportunity, and this really gives you a good feeling. Maybe we only pushed a few buttons and gave a few commands, but we were there. But the best thing about what happens on the surface of the planet is everything having to do with Zefram Cochrane. This is the only time that the film actually explores an idea, and it was damn good. In fact, if everything that took place on the planet had been a TNG episode, it would have been one of their best. As it happens, it only turns out to be a good part of this movie, but nevertheless, it is very good. Zefram Cochrane is a self-important drunk who only built the Phoenix to make money. But all of a sudden, these idealistic visitors from the future come to him and tell him that his ship and his supposed vision will unite humanity in a way no one before or since ever has, and he will usher in a new, peaceful, and glorious era for us all. Now, there are two interesting things about this. The first is that this is the antithesis of what Cochrane ever wanted. It even flies in the face of who he is. And the second is that Cochrane learns that he will become a great leader and a shining historical figure, and he doesn't want it. He runs from his own destiny, even though he knows that this will do something amazing and that he will bring peace and prosperity to millions. Now, there are two things that this makes you think about. First, what if you were able to travel back in time and meet one of your long-dead famous idols? Would they live up to your expectations, or would you be downright disappointed by meeting the man or woman rather than the legend? Just how much does history redress what kind of people they actually were? How much different is the man from the legend? Second, how would you feel if you learned that just plain simple you would one day change the world? Who among us would actually embrace that? Who among us would run? This is what Star Trek is all about, giving you a hypothetical scenario that really makes you think. And this is what I like about everything that takes place on the planet, because it really does capture what the series did best. It may not have had any shooting or explosions, but it has ideas. But this isn't just an issue of Cochrane not wanting responsibility, nor is it just a matter of him valuing money over anything else. In this one conversation with Riker, we realize that Cochrane doesn't want to be a historical figure because he doesn't think he's good enough. He's not a great man. His very motivations prove that to himself, and being told the figure that he will become only reinforces to him everything that he isn't, setting a standard that shames him when he compares it to who he really is. Zefram Cochrane is just a man. But being told his own words from the future, that you shouldn't try to be a great man, just be a man, and let history make its own judgment, is the very everyman wisdom he needed. Because we're all just men, even the best, smartest, and most noble of us. And even more than that, most of the pivotal moments in human history have come about by accident or for another motivation entirely, from the discovery of atomic energy to the freaking origin of the post-it notes. And that's also what I love about this story, because it tells the origin of the Federation in a way that is so incredibly fitting. None of this was done on purpose. Getting the Vulcans' attention was an accident. But that just makes it more genuine. If we were trying to position ourselves as a new and enlightened humanity, it would have been pompous and probably disingenuous. But this all came about because we didn't decide to be great. We just were. And lastly, Cochrane's transition from just a man to someone who could usher in a new era for humanity was natural and heartwarming. It turns out that this isn't something that he needed to run from in the first place. This is something he simply never knew he wanted because he never thought about anyone but himself. But once the moment came, Zephram Cochrane found that great man that everyone kept telling him about. He still does it his way, but he embraces this new future and his new self as well. Everything that took place on the planet was good, and it was a great representation on film of what Star Trek The Next Generation was. But what does this mean for the film overall? Does it mean it was great? Good? Bad? Well, I would go so far as to say that it wasn't bad. There were some bad moments, such as everything on the ship, and even some on the planet, where Marina Sirtis does the worst impression of a drunk person I've ever seen. But overall, the experience was, I'd say, satisfactory. I think there was more bad than good, unfortunately, and the opportunities that this film had to tell a good story were almost always sidestepped, but for what it is, I suppose I would go so far as to put it in the camp of okay. Was it better than Star Trek Generations? Yes, by leaps and bounds. Was it better than any of the films that followed it? Well, we'll just have to see.